Hi, and welcome back to another episode of In the Process of Healing. Sorry, I'm proper gas. Okay, today's episode, I feel so blessed. I want to start with that. No, I really do. I feel really blessed. I feel really humbled in a lot of ways. I feel you'll see. But this amazing human, this amazing woman, where do I start? Creative genius, an activist. She's just amazing, just a genuine person, and you are all those things. Like musician, voice. Okay, just saying. I don't know if we're gonna go into that, but hit her up. But honestly, just a beautiful person, and I just can't wait to get stuck in with this conversation. So without further ado, this is Zoe, guys.
Hello, hold the applause. Hi. I'm really honored to be here, by the way. Very honored. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you for doing this. Sorry, I'm so happy. Okay, so as we start every podcast, every episode, we start off with, what does healing mean to you?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, healing to me is an ongoing process of the self. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just healing what you feel is right to you in the current time period, but I do believe it's lifelong.
For sure. I love that you not emphasize, but I heard in the current time period.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that's an important part of this. I feel my namesake, in the process of healing, is the idea that we're continuously healing. We're continuously finding parts of us that we need to either heal or grow from. And I really use the word grow loosely, because I feel sometimes grow is a depiction of getting better, or maybe growing is just identifying something new, or growing in the sense of your inner self is trying to work out what works best for you. So that might be regression in a certain sense. Things that you thought were progressive or helping you to grow as an individual is probably was to your detriment. Which kind of leads me on to what we've been talking about. So we kind of had a bit of a catch up before we start. A little catch up. And we're just talking about this podcast being about choices. Now, I feel when we use the word choice or to choose, it sometimes can come across as this thing of selfish. Or at least in my opinion, I don't know, conversations that I have with people around me or friends or family, it's always why did they choose to do that? They chose to do that. And sometimes maybe the choice of choosing self is probably maybe not at the betterment of other people, and that's probably a good thing, but maybe it should be a choice for self to discover yourself, or try and elevate yourself to a place where you feel good in yourself. So what would you say that how has that been for you, to if you have chosen yourself, should I say?
Oh yeah.
Do you think you're choosing yourself? Have you chosen yourself? What has that process been for you?
That's a great question, and I think everyone wants to choose themselves, just to really honor who they are.
Yeah.
And you want that, but I think as we grow up socially, we lose sight of what choosing yourself really means. So I like how you phrased it as, have you chosen yourself? And sometimes it's also just being able to recognize that I am not choosing myself, or I am choosing myself, and what that actually looks like with yourself. Right? Because I do feel a lot of we're social creatures, so a lot of opinions, and even social media and what you consume can affect the way your choices. Addicting. Yeah. Made to be addicted.
Yes. Doom scroll on TikTok.
Yeah. You say one thing, it's an ad.
No, it's true. It's true.
No, it's no joke. But that's it. What am I really choosing for myself too? What am I choosing to consume? What am I doing for myself? And I can actually say for this year that I have been choosing myself, and I wasn't able to know what that looks like. Because to me, choosing myself, I'm gonna choose myself and eat a bag of chips, and that could be a choice. Yeah. And for me, it is too. Hey, I ate a bowl of this barbecue chips before we turned on the camera and had to refill it for the aesthetic. So it wasn't empty. But yeah, I understand what choice in sustainability means. Like making choices that are sustainable to my long-term growth and like my higher self or inner self that you were talking about, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's dope. Okay, like the longevity of a choice. I feel like sometimes when we choose things, I don't know, for me, like I always think about like the choices I make. So like recently in recent episodes it was about immigrating, and I guess choosing myself was moving to Canada, but at the time at which I was choosing that, it wasn't a choice for myself. It was a choice out of like, I don't know, I don't use the word like desperation. I think that's quite dramatic, but like it was out of a choice of like, I feel like I have no other option. And sometimes that is a choice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I feel like it might be the scariest one because, as I mentioned in previous podcasts, I said like, I had chosen to move away before. I had done that kind of like exploration in like finding the world or being worldly or whatever it may be, and it didn't work out. And it's like, how do you choose the same thing again, knowing that it will work out this time? Or like, because you can like bet on yourself, I guess. You can be like, oh, I know that I have these qualities, yeah, and these qualities are desirable by people, but is it actually healthy for you? And I think this is where it gets a bit like scary, right? It's like, okay, in me choosing myself, is it in the betterment of like knowing that like this is not going to be sacrificial, or is it going to be like something that's going to make me feel stronger, right? Yeah. So how do you differentiate between the two when you're making that choice?
Yes, that's a great question. I think for me, it's just trusting my heart and where my heart is sitting right now. Like, is it sitting in a place that is for again, like my highest self, my highest good? But I think when it comes to choices, sometimes you have to make those choices because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So even knowing and getting that information of like, this doesn't work, this does, it creates more choices and more options, which gets very overwhelming. But I think that's where wisdom comes into play and discernment.
Wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah. What's wisdom to you? Because, Yeah.
Wisdom to me is very much an acquired skill. I think that's based on experience. But wisdom helps with discernment. Like what choice to make.
Okay.
So with knowledge, right, like you can try all these things and you say like, this works, this doesn't, this works, this doesn't. And you can go about life like that. I truly believe that you can.
Yeah.
But I think with the wisdom of each experience that you've had, you can narrow down what your heart really wants.
Or aligns
with. And even with you, for example, coming to Canada or making that choice, there was something in your heart that said, based on my experience, this is what my calling is, and I'll figure out along the way if it's just another choice that doesn't align with me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna head back.
No, but for real,
I'm moving back.
But I tell you, like, okay, there's two things I want to touch on, but that's true. Like, heading back, one being like, so the prior place that I moved to before was New York City, and it was not it. It's not it, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Like I think it can work for some people.
Yeah.
I guess maybe the characteristics or traits that I have just didn't align with that, and that's perfectly okay. I made some really good friends there. Shout out. New York. Yeah, I made some really nice people there, but it just didn't work. But the difference was, and you talked about higher self, so I kind of want to get into that. But like finding something that like energetically aligns with you is that it was very interesting to see people around me when I was like, I'm moving to New York, was like, oh, I can't wait to see you get back. And I was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to, when I get back and I can tell you my stories and whatnot. When I said I was moving to Canada, silence.
It's a one-way.
It's
a one-way.
It was one way.
Yeah.
It was literally like, okay, you're moving.
Yeah.
Silence. And I was like, you're not gonna say like when you get back, none of that. It was like, okay, that's good. I remember like one of my parents, I won't say who, literally I told them, they left. And I was like, oh.
Left as in
no, they left my room and I was like, oh fuck. like, shit, okay, I messed this up. Like, I could have done it in a more tasteful way. Maybe I could have been like, sent them out, taking them to dinner. So I didn't know like what the heck. Like, I was like, oh shit, like I fucked this up now.
Yeah.
And then literally came back and went, like, this was like after an hour, mind you. So I'm here like, my heart's like, no, this is a brilliant move. I just think that this is what you need to do. And just hearing that, it was like, I don't know if that was like divine intervention or like something was passed through them to go, you know, this is what you need to do. Because I didn't, honestly, I think I've told this story before on here. I don't know if I told this story, but literally, I was in another country. I literally was on the phone to my best friend being like, I can't do London anymore. I can't do the UK anymore. And I need a place where I can like learn and grow. And she was like, okay, then so what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know. Went on Google. Press? Yes! Just there. It literally went Canada and I went, no way. I came here before to do something. I was like, oh, I liked Canada. Why not? Let's give it a go.
Yeah.
That was it. There was no like logic behind it.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like maybe that was a divine higher self, like being like, you know that you need to be here. But at the time I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? And I just remember calling my other friend that I went to go visit in Italy and being like, yes, I'm moving to Canada. And he's like, when did that come from? I was like, I don't know either. But cool, like, but this is what we're gonna do.
I booked the flight.
Yeah. Literally, I booked the flight and everything, and that was it. It was one way, and then.
Yeah. And here you are.
And here I am.
We're still in Canada.
We're still in Canada, 3 years on. But you said higher self.
Yes.
I do want to go back to higher self.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? Like, what is your higher self, if you don't mind?
Yeah, no worries. I feel like my higher self is probably the true calling without it being earthly, like flesh, like very worldly, like.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I like how you said that it felt like your true calling, because I do think higher self doesn't need understanding. You just know. And then it's always tapping into, I'm on this earth, how do I always tap into that self that I see myself that doesn't see worldly things. But it's obviously in, you know, we're on this earth, so we do have to play the game a little bit.
Yes.
You know? But I think that's my higher self is someone who has very fixed not fixed, but because everything changes.
Yes.
Things can change, but it comes down to your core values, and how you align with them, and how consistent of like a foundation, pillar, and rooted you are in them. So like my higher self, values change. Like maybe you for 1 year. You could say peace is like a highest value that you present, or authenticity, or love, or strength, or growth, right? Like within those values, you're, kind of making choices from that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's always a choice that will always make me feel better despite the world. That is my higher self.
Do you see why I love this woman? Do you see, like, it just, I feel like sometimes, like, even, okay, let's say, like, our opinions didn't even align. I would still love, because it's just so eloquently said. And for me, that's like, referring back to what you just said about, that can change periodically about, like, what your objective is. I would say, like, last year, my objective was, like, I said to myself, I'm going to be confident. I'm going to go to auditions and, like, pretend that I don't give a shit. I still gave a shit.
I still get.
Yeah,
I'm still a human.
I'm still human. I still feel it. But it was like, okay. And then when I got to the end of the year, I was like, oh my God, the goal wasn't even to be confident. It was just to be myself without questioning it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's different to being authentic. Because I think being authentic is just showing up, right? Showing up, like, who you are. Like, being like, this is me. I'm Kishanti. I'm a dancer. Like, that's being authentic, for sure. But I feel like when you're showing up for yourself with who you are unapologetically, that's completely different. Yeah. And I feel like I didn't realize that it wasn't anything to do with my confidence. It was to not shy away from who I truly am. And that comes back with being that choice, right? So like every year I have last year was like confidence, the year before that was like communication, the year before that was like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I was like, I always have like one every year. This year I have none. Yeah. This year I actively chose, man, I'm not even gonna set an objective. Let's just see what happens with just not being like, this is what I need to do this year.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt like I guess what some people would say is like I'm kind of hard on myself. I don't feel like I'm not achieving that.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel, and that's what I'm saying about this choice. Like we can choose that we want these things, but it's like to what detriment? Like if it's gonna be to our own demise, like what's the point of the choice? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, where, like how do you decipher between like what's a healthy choice and what's not? And you did say it earlier. You said like it has to feel good in your gut, but like I don't know. I want to say that my gut's never led me astray, but I do think it also acts on emotion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes separating that emotion from gut is also very tricky.
Yes.
So do you do that?
It's a great question. I'm very expressive. That's how I say emotional. I'm very expressive. I'm very emotional, and I think a lot of what I learned is the amount of control that my emotions had on me and my lack of control with them. But with listening to my emotions, I was able to like filter out what matters to me. But I realized that if I let my emotions take control of my life, then I hurt more people. And it was a tough fight because I chose my emotions for myself, but then it would hurt people. So then I had to find other ways to let go of control and find peace in control.
Yeah.
So that's for context. But to answer your question, how do I discern like emotions with gut? I actually word it in a way where like you actually don't trust your emotions or thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Okay.
You don't. It's a podcast of its own.
Okay.
But how I want to say it is that your thoughts are it's just I think as humans we try to understand a lot of things, and thoughts are very confining to what we know. So when we trust our thoughts, we trust things that we have been receptive to since we were kids. So I'm gonna get a little sciencey.
I love this. So keep going.
Get a little sciencey, but through this healing journey from this year, I've read that it takes 10,000 thoughts to create a new neural pathway.
Wow.
So what fires together wires together. So if you keep thinking the same thing over and over, you're gonna believe it.
Yeah.
So then what if we reframed our thoughts where it's actually beneficial to our highest selves and is reworked in a way where, and then this is where my values come in, where it's, for me, do my thoughts serve the grace that I would want to give myself, the forgiveness, the peace, the love? So that's where the internal fight of emotions and gut would come in, because it's like my actions might be hurting myself and me, but I just also know how I want to show up. But what are things within myself that I can change where they align? And for me, that was a starting point, like changing my thoughts. So if it's about reframing, like, oh, I was let go of this job, or it's like I was released from something that would have kept me in a comfortable place, right? And then rewiring slowly those thoughts, and then eventually getting to a place where your choices are in that framework of like that align with your highest self. So it's not the verses, but how do we align them?
That makes perfect sense. It's just how dope it sounds. It's just, I hear it. The thing that like I guess resonates with me is that mantras, right? And actually, talking about mantras, do you remember how we first started talking? Yes. Right?
Yeah.
So I guess I was on that like reshape your thoughts, because that's like a healthier way of being. Help guide you to a better place or mindset. It's so interesting. So I how long was it? Like I wouldn't say a year.
The summer.
It was just in the summer, but like it was before the summer. I had seen you around
in May.
Yeah, I had seen her around. It's like I'm gonna speak to her, but you know, like I'm a true believer in like energy, and I'm a true believer in like when it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I went to go and speak to you, I was like, nah, it's not the right time.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it. It didn't even make sense.
Yeah.
It did not even make sense. It was just like, I just don't feel like it's the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was an occasion where we're like around this place, an establishment, like at a desk, and we're all talking amongst ourselves, but we didn't speak. And I was like, why am I not speaking to you? This makes no sense. Like, there's no reason for me not to speak to this lady.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the showcase,
Mm-hmm.
and then you spoke to me then, but it was very brief. It was like, oh, you did really well.
Yeah.
And then you just walked off.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, whoa, this woman's energy, like, I want to talk to her, but like, I don't know how to do this.
Wow.
Then we had the break,
Mm-hmm.
and then, like, for whatever reason, I left my phone like on the thing, and it must have lit up, right? And it had like my mantra of like, this month's gonna be a great month, like, you know, you're good, to that effect. And like I would read that every day to myself to make sure, you know, like just get myself in that better space. Like even if I didn't believe it, and that's another thing in itself. Even if you don't believe it, just saying it sparks something inside of you, right? And it goes back to that confidence thing. It was that mantra was literally just purely for me to like have that confidence to know that I'm capable. And then some pops on my phone, and it's just like, oh, she's like, I know where you're at. And you're like, let's have a conversation.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you literally turned to me and went, I know where you're at. We're gonna have a conversation. That was literally, I was like, thank you. Like literally, like in my head, the universe, I was like, this was the time that we needed to speak. And we literally digressed for how many hours?
Oh my gosh, like 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like going and just like going through it. And I was just like, yeah, this was the right time to do it. Because I felt like at the point at which I had first wanted to speak to you, I was still like in this like limbo place. You know?
Me too. Yeah.
And I feel like I hadn't chosen myself at that point. I'd chosen to like, you know, go after things I wanted to, but I wasn't doing it with conviction.
Right.
I wasn't doing it with purpose. And I think that's also important. Like the intention behind why I was doing it was not there.
Right.
I just knew that it's something I like to do, or I used to like to do.
Yeah.
Because I went this long period of time where I wasn't doing anything creative. I was just like keeping to myself. And I had like family and friends being like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, get back to it. Like, do this, do this, do this. But once again, you have to be only you can make that choice, right? But yeah, sorry, that was on a long journey, but like, how
great,
was that?
Great lore.
Yeah.
Great lore for them.
Yeah, but that is what happened, right?
That's what
like,
happened.
and at that point in time, like, what shifted for you to make that choice to be like, okay, like, I'm in limbo. Like, how did you get out of that for yourself?
Like that limbo?
Yeah, that limbo place.
I think it's just not. Oh my gosh, it's honestly easier said, like harder than I'm making it out to be. Like being mindful that I spent like intentional days, months, weeks, like this entire year, really working on myself and learning for myself. So how did I get out of that limbo? Honestly, I think it comes down to where I was at the time and accepting it truly. Like I had victim mentality. I was making a lot of mistakes. I felt like I was failing a lot of people. I failed myself, honestly, and but it's the lack of grace that I gave myself that pushed me in a place towards healing, because shit, I was my biggest hater.
But you just saying that, you just said that you're a failure. Why do you think you failed yourself? If you just said you also need to give yourself grace.
Yes, so that's funny, because when I say failure, I don't mean it in a way, I guess, where I look back and I'm like ashamed of it.
Okay, so you don't regret it.
Yeah. Okay. For me, failure is like strictly like I failed a task that I set out for myself. That's it. Okay. It has no other additional meaning to it, but I failed to show up the way I said I was going to.
Okay.
Like I failed the responsibility of it, but I wouldn't say I failed like
as a person.
Yeah, as a person. Let's get that straight. Yeah. But it, you know, and verbiage is very important, like the way you talk to yourself. But I think that's just the way I, at the time, like talked about myself. And a lot of it was driven by shame and guilt, and that's like the lowest vibration you could ever be on, as well as apathy, like scientifically. Yeah, like shame, guilt, apathy. It's like probably the lowest vibration you can be at, and I had that towards myself. So how did I get out of that limbo? The affirmations helped a lot. Again, like just knowing that, you know, if I say this and I don't believe it, eventually I will. And there's a therapy for it, right?
Yeah.
CBT.
Yeah.
Well,
Did
listen,
that.
spirituality, psychology, a lot of parallels in life, like truly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels in life that you can like derive from.
Faith,
yes, religion,
yeah.
faith. There's a lot of things that overlap, and then just getting to know those realms in its entirety. Like I studied psychology, and then I went into spirituality, and then obviously like, exploring my faith.
Yeah.
They all come down to the same root of what I was looking for, right? Is that the way you think about yourself, the way you speak about yourself, feel, is who you are.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're out here, like, if I'm condemning myself every single day, there's a difference between condemning and conviction.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just, I was condemning myself, and I put myself in a place where I'm like, I'm not worthy, I'm not loved, I'm not at peace, and all of that.
Yeah.
So getting out of that limbo, it's hard work. It's intentional work. I would say it's intentional work. And getting down to the nitty gritty of like, why do I feel unworthy? Why do I feel only worthy when people recognize it? Or like, why do I need that feedback?
Yeah. But I feel like it's like one, environment you grew up in, culture, I think plays a big part, or at least like in reflection to like me. I guess like some people would say, I grew up in like an unconventional like Afro-Caribbean household. Like my family were quite I guess in a lot of sense are considered quite liberal. That like they're okay with people that are queer. They're like, you know, they're very they spoke about sex very openly. Like that was like our thing. But then in a lot of ways, like that confined it because it made me feel like this is how things had to be. Like this is like the only way you can love someone, or this is the only way you should be. But there was one thing that you said about like talking to yourself, and it's interesting you said about like energy and vibration, because I don't think it's even just in ourselves. We can do it to an environment. So like my favorite but I don't know if I'm gonna get this right, but like one of my favorite like documentaries that I watched was this test that they did with plants. Have you seen this?
Yes, and the way you speak to them.
And you speak to them, so it was like the same exact plant, same exact environment, but one of them they spoke only good things to, like you're so beautiful, thank you for growing, you're like I can't wait to see you flourish, and then the other one was just like you're ugly, you're crap, this is bad, and it like honestly the comparison is insane. Obviously you can do the test for yourself, but genuinely it was insane to see like how this plant had flourished so quickly and this one was just here. So you can't tell me that this is not real. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's so real. So that's why I was like not like I when I was like, oh you found, I was like, no, don't say that, come on, because like you're like but when you explain yourself, it makes total sense. And I feel like a lot of the times I was using quite destructive words like that, like oh my god, like I used to be so good at this, why can't I do it now? The time is different. I'm older as well, my body is different, do you know what I mean? Like, why can't I get that somersault now, like, to that height? Well, you know, it's a little bit different now, my body's changed. Like, and it's having, what you said, grace, right? Having that grace with yourself and being like, okay, on reflection, it's okay. And I think there is some people in this life, and I actually had this conversation recently with one of a friend, and he said, like, he doesn't need to reflect. And for me, that was like so shocking. But the way that he said it, he was like, I can't reflect on something that I can't change, but what I can do is in the moment, understand what I did and then move on from it. But that's not a reflection. It's like, but you are still, you're still like processing that. But he's like, no, but in that moment in time that is happening, that is just that confined time.
Right.
And then he just goes on with his life.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like, what? No, how do you just like, you've upset someone and then you just move on from it. They're like, yeah, but that was the person I was then and now I'm the person I am now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like, I don't know if that's like the healthiest thing, but like, he does say that he also understands that he's done wrong at times, but I'm just like, how does that play into, also he's an awesome guy, he's really lovely by the way, but like, how does that play into like, do you think that's a thing that's healthy or choice, or do you think that's avoidant? Because you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of the time, like there's a lot of people that like, oh, do you know what my like, I don't want to say love language, but
I
was
hear
it, do
you.
you know what I mean? They're like, oh, I have like an avoidant attachment,
Right.
like kind of vibe, and like sometimes I feel like it's almost like glamorized as like a thing, like, oh yeah, I have this kind of style of living, and I'm always like, it's not. I don't know if, like, it's nice that you know that's what you do, but I don't know if that's like necessarily something to like.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So I don't know how to explain it without it coming across like I'm being like a douche, but I want to also make sure that it's like, I feel like there's a way of like coming across and being like, okay, this is the kind of person I am.
Yeah.
What are you doing to like either rectify it, or if you want to rectify it, you might not even want to, and that's also okay.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what, like, how would you reconcile with someone that approaches you in that manner?
Oh, approaches reconcile?
Or reconcile, or like just even like interact with someone like
okay.
that. If you know of someone to be like that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, first, I think when it comes to anything in life, it's about identity. And we'll start there. Again, I always like to start at the core. You start at the core, which is the identity and how they view themselves, right? Like if my identity is attached to my love language or my attachment style, then it's a recurring thought that I will give power to say like, this is who I am, accept it. And it can come to intention of the person, right? Like you saying like, oh, this person's a great guy. You know his heart. You know his heart posture. Yeah. But you also are knowledgeable to know the other opinions that people may have on this type of approach. Yeah. Right. So how do I approach people like that? I think it's just trusting that people always have your best intentions at heart. Because people, I truly believe like people never like want to intentionally hurt you, but like with that approach, sometimes it is him choosing, like from what I see, and I'm no saint either. Like there are times where I make a choice, people are like, you hurt me, and I'm like, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, like I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, and then just taking accountability for that. So for people that approach life like that, or if I approach life like that, I know where my heart lies, and if I stay in that state where I keep saying like, I fucked up, I messed up, and I know that already, but I keep saying that to a point where I'm now paralyzed to even make a decision, then I won't make choices that are best for me. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's how just life is, and what wisdom comes with is that with these experiences, unfortunately, we do hurt people. We're humans. We have a certain amount of capacity that we hold for people, even if they say like, I have capacity, you're still taking from them. Yeah. Yeah. So in that, I just really hope that the person, I'm looking at how they identify with themselves. Yeah. If you are telling me like, oh, Zoe, I'm not gonna give you chips, and I'm like, okay, that doesn't change your identity to me. But and in the grand scheme of things, like if it's a choice that is weighted in a way where is more
can affect you.
Yeah. Then I just trust where you're at and your identity, but it's always asking questions like, okay, if you truly believe that you made this mistake, you took accountability for it, and you're never going to do it again, then yeah, for sure. Cool. And then, if people make that same mistake and they told you that, like, I wouldn't make, then hold them accountable too. Maybe they didn't realize it or recognize it. So that's like boundary setting. It's, boundary
setting is the deep one. Yeah. I feel like, boundary setting. Yes, that one hit. Because two things being like, one, I was saying to Zoe that I think I said it in season 1, like I had this statement that I would say to my mom all the time, like, wisdom is not age. Age doesn't, like, I guess you have more opportunity to gain knowledge and gain wisdom because your age is higher or whatever it may be. But I do truly believe that wisdom is linked to experiences, right? And also, to touch on the topic that we also said earlier, or I said earlier, was like, culturally, I feel like, culture, at least like in like my Afro-Caribbean setting, was that, you must listen rather than like be heard. Like you listen to what's being told to you. I don't know like if that's similar in the Asian culture, but definitely like for us, it was like, you need to listen. Like, we know what's best for you. And I feel like that can kind of spill into like your adulthood. And I feel like a lot of times, like, you seek that validation from like someone that's higher than you. And when I say higher, I mean like that could even be in a job position. Like, you see someone that's like of authority to you, so you're like, okay, I have to go to them for validation, or I have to go to them for like understanding. And I think that also boils down to like phenomenal dancer. It's like in dance as well, like there's an aesthetic, right? There's like, you have to fit that mold, and then that higher person, that being your teacher, wants you to look a certain way, wants you to present in a certain way. And if your teacher's not saying, you look great, this is perfect for you, then that also can be like detrimental in like choosing things for yourself that like might be healthy. And I think that's when it plays into that whole idea of like people pleasing, and especially I think in like the sports that we're in, it can lead to that, because like you're always looking for that constant like, yeah, or that shoe throw in your face, like, oh my god, like you killed it, right? And when you don't hear that you killed it, it's like, oh shit, then I'm crap.
Yeah.
Or at least for me, that's like, I got to that place where it's like, if I'm not hearing this constantly, like, you have to bear in mind, like, a lot of people come from different places where they're like the best in their studio.
Right.
Right? They're the best person in their studio. But when you go to that audition, your flick tap back is someone else can do that 2 times more and maybe 2 times higher. It doesn't change like the talent that you hold, right? But then it's like perspective, like, how do I get out of that space of being like, oh fuck, okay, like know my self-worth. And I think that also plays a part in choosing yourself, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that your worth is good enough to exist in the space. So with that being said, have you ever quarreled with like knowing your worth?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Almost like every day, right? Like I wake up and I'm like, what the fuck is my worth today?
Yeah.
But no, truly, I think it does have to come from the intention of like where you stand with yourself and what worth means to you. And honestly, self-worth is how much faith you have in yourself without listing out like your accolades.
No, for real.
Like who are you truly without it all? And just getting down to that business, right? And that is stuff that's not physically tangible for people to see, but to feel. So again, coming back to the core of the heart starts at the heart. I think the self-worth, who am I without like everything that I've been blessed with? And it's just straight faith. And unfortunately, we do have to have in this earth like tangible ways to say like, are you qualified for this? Right? And but it's that's just how it is. But how I navigate that is that this role requires responsibilities, and then my identity is separate from it, and I'm just doing a job. So if I'm a dancer and I know that the responsibilities are to do exactly what the choreographer says, to attend rehearsals 4 times a week, then that's how I need to show up for the role. It's just a role.
It's not who you are.
Exactly. So when I start there before saying yes, then I can see like, okay, do I have the capacity or the energy to give this what they need, right? Which is the roles and responsibilities that are outlined, or am I coming in hoping that I get something out of it? So it's like, no, you get a percentage of me for the roles you've enlisted, and I can fulfill it, and I'm willing to fulfill it, and that's how I frame it.
I love that. Maybe I should use that when I go to more places, because I feel like, I think like I go into places like almost like, I don't want to use this, but like almost like bleed myself out. Like I'm like, hey, like have it. Like I can do this. I can provide this. But like, I think that's me like, once again, being hard on myself. Me being like, I'm a go-getter. Like I'm gonna get this done. Like I want to do this to the best of my ability. Like I feel like I've always been told like, if you're not gonna put 100% in, don't even bother. And I think that's come from like my parents being like, you should always, if you're gonna do something, do it 100%. But then I realized that when you quantify what you're doing, it kind of like makes everything else seem lesser than, right? So when you're quantifying in your head, okay, this is the thing that I'm putting 100% in, where does that leave me resting? That's at 0.
Exactly, yeah.
Where does that leave me like enjoying or like connecting with friends?
Yeah.
That leaves that at 0.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you can't give 100% to that thing, and that's okay. And if your 100%, quote unquote, is just showing up, that's amazing.
Yes.
And that might even be 10%, and then you can put 40% in the self care, and then the 30. I'm not calculating this in my head, but like, do you know what I mean? Like that. Like, I feel like we always want to create this like this physical thing or like this like thing to prove, and I think that's my thing is like I fall into this like thing of like trying to prove myself or like prove like, you know, this is what I can do, like I'm worthy. And I feel like, yeah, I have moments of that. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I still have moments of that, but like nowhere as near as what I was doing before. Like, do you know what I mean? But yes.
So even just like hearing what you say, like when we talk about percentage, because it's very common, like language that people use to say, give it 100 or give it 10%. But even like with how I go about it, I am fulfilled in the way that I am, in the way I show up. Like that's just what my capacity is for that day. But if I know the roles and responsibilities, I'm giving the percentage that I can in terms of energy, but not identity.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's like how I differentiate that stuff.
But this, I feel like simultaneously, I think a lot of people use what they do as their identity.
Oh yeah,
and
capitalism. Capitalism.
Yeah, but it's like it becomes who they are. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's nothing. Also, I want to specify, like, when we're having these discussions, it's coming from a place of, like, this is, like, our opinions and this is what we're observing, right? Yeah. And I feel like a lot, and this is also the dangerous part. I've noticed in myself that, like, I'm trying to rectify, like, what has been said, and it's nothing to rectify, but rather to establish, like, that the forum is a place of openness. It's a place of, like, we're just expressing ourselves and there's nothing to be ridiculed about, but other than join the conversation. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Join the conversation, give your opinion, because I feel like I've been so enlightened by you in this conversation.
Wow.
No, honestly, because I feel like there's no, like, I think I've expressed this before, that I'm like, and this is what goes back to identity, right? Like, yeah, I'm dyslexic. And people always used to be like, oh, you talk very well for someone that's dyslexic. And I'm like, well, what's that got to do with anything? Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm like, I hear what they're saying. I get what they're saying. Like, you can't intellectualize things properly, or you can't, like, speak the way you want to. And I think sometimes, yeah, I do get anxiety over, like, how I want to communicate my words over to people, or how I want to, like, present a thought or feeling. But that also comes with, like, hesitation of being like, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing because I don't want to piss off people, or I don't want, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
I think that goes back to just being like, understanding, don't apologize for who you are. Like, if you say something wrong, you say something wrong. Like, so in terms of, like, if your intention is not to hurt someone, you know? And I think it is intentionality at the end of the day that's, like, what helps and supports the choice. Could we say that?
Yeah, I mean, it's also like the amount of power you give words and people, right? Like, to them, dyslexic, because I have a reading disability actually, and I counter that a lot. Of like, you're really good at admin for someone. I'm like, well, like, right? So, I think the power and maybe the lack of knowledge too that people have, and it doesn't even have to come down to like disabilities, or like it could even be as simple as, oh, you live alone, and then like they think they have this attachment of what that looks like, of living alone, or someone who has a dog. Like, there's attachments to these things, but what is your story, your narrative when it comes to that stuff? And that's where knowledge is very important, like understanding people's stories, understanding or not understanding, sorry, but knowing of, right? Knowing of people's experiences, and that's like, that comes through connection, right? That comes through jobs or anything in life, right? What is your narrative with what you have? And if people's opinions like are affecting me, then how strong is that faith within myself and my narrative? And I'm like, oh, you know what, that triggered me, maybe I need to work on that part for myself. And that's how I navigated so much of this year. Like, I cared so much about what people think, and I gave a lot of power to words, the way they used it, right? And that's a skill of empathy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I see where you're coming from, like, and but now I'm internalizing it, and that it can get unhealthy, because who am I if I'm internalizing a bunch
Everything,
of exactly.
yeah.
So then there was this like podcast sermon that I was listening to, and I love the way they worded it, like FOMO, but as a acronym for false obedience makes options. So if you're not obedient to who you are, then it'll make all these options of like, if I say this, then this will happen. If I say this, but if I'm obedient and I trust my heart, I have faith in my heart, I have faith in myself, then there's no option. I know no matter what I say will always be rooted in my high self.
Yeah.
So false obedience makes options. And I was like,
chills. No, when you just said it, I was like, oh shit.
I was like, you got me there. I am not obedient to my values. Or like, maybe I just don't even know what my values are. And maybe I can list them out, and then look at it and see like, oh, I didn't align with this today, or I did, whatever, I did or didn't. But as we keep being and here's the thing, I'm not saying everyone should do this, because capacity in life, and I'm like actually so grateful. I'm very blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Right, to think, and that's a very, very privileged to
it can be quite political to even just think, right?
Yeah. So the grace that I gave myself and what I needed for myself this year was to sit with myself and say, like, I wanted change, and it came with all these like pushbacks, obstacles, but this is what I asked for.
Yeah.
So am I gonna take it, or am I gonna keep living life the way I did, where I was completely dissatisfied with how I've been living life, which was attached to how I was.
Yeah.
Right? So then I have to be obedient of the amount of work that I've put in, the experiences that I've had, the people that I met, right? To learn all these things for me to show up the way I am. And it's a constant, like, working habit, and
for sure.
Like habit or just way of life that I want to live my life. That's how I want to. And then if it does align with people for the timing, divine timing, then so be it.
Yeah.
So then through that I was able to like let go of my own attachments to the way I saw things, because I cared so much about my people, right? It doesn't even have to be from a stranger. Like my best friends, my family, my sister, like I care about them, right? But I also have to care about myself first.
Yeah,
and have faith in myself, because I think we're just our biggest haters and our biggest like pushbackers. So
for sure.
Yeah, we're with ourselves every day.
Yes.
So we have to be our own best friends. We have to be our own lovers. Like we have to become what we want to see in the world, right? So as much as I do want to change like systems or whatever of this earthly world,
start with you first.
I have to make sure that I'm showing up that way too, before implementing it on others and like trying to make them understand. So there's false obedience makes options. So that's that one killed me.
Energy. No, that's energy. Guys, I could talk to Zoe all day, but I don't like, you want, like, we have to listen, but like, I just want to, I have to listen. That was not even English. See, I did it again, but that's okay. That's okay. We have to like kind of wrap up this episode, but like, honestly, I feel like I could say so much more. Like, I was listening to like so many things that you were saying. I'm just like, oh, like, yes, that and that and that, and you know what I mean? Like, I can't wait for people to hear it, because it's just like this resonates so true, and I think for a lot of people it feels so true, but it's like identifying to it or like acknowledging it to be true and like being okay with that, because I feel like there's a lot of like fear within thinking. And I think the world and the economy and the politics that we have around us these days lead you to be fearful of your own critical thinking. And if anything I inspire you to do, or like we inspire you to do, or like anyone inspires you to do, is just to think for a moment. Take that break, stop, breathe, and just take a moment for yourself. I don't know, you could be like my friend and not want to reflect, but even in the choice of knowing that that's what you're gonna do, like just do that with conviction. Do that with like all wholeheartedness. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
All wholeheartedness.
Yeah.
So we've got to the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
Sorry, I really appreciate you. No, I really appreciate
No, thank you.
doing this.
I'm so honored to be here, and thank you for the space.
No,
Thank you
it.
for like it's a good time. Like I'm good. Like I love I love you. I love talking to.
I love Zoe.
Yes, we connected very quickly.
Yeah, it was very like it just makes
it's very instantaneous. So
it was great.
Very honored.
The way we finish up.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that we offer 2 songs to add to our in the process of healing playlist.
Okay.
And a quote that helps you like or inspires you.
Mm-hmm. So songs, "Tell Him" by Lauryn Hill. Oh my gosh.
I love that song.
Yes. Love that. I
Yes.
think love is patient, love is kind.
Yeah.
That's a good one. "Tell Him" by Lauryn Hill, and then ooh, sorry, I completely forgot my names of my other songs. Probably "Mirror" by Madison Ward, I think her name is.
I feel like I know this song. Okay.
Yeah. But it's by I'll send it to you.
Okay, cool.
But it's just about, I love the lyric, "Keep me in your mirror, but don't take your eyes off the road."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do know this song.
Yes.
Yes.
So I like those 2 songs. For quotes.
Well, you kind of given us a quote, but you can give us
Yeah,
another. Bless us with your wisdom, please.
Thank you. No, I think you're so funny. The one that has gotten me through this year has been "Set your why and life will show you how."
I like that one. Yeah.
Just very honest.
So I wasn't gonna say this quote only until like it's been on my mind and it keeps repeating in my mind. I'm probably gonna butcher the quote. You can Google it, but it's along the lines of that quote. But it's like when we kiss, when we dream, when we feel or think, we always close our eyes, and that shows that life is something that we feel, not that we need to see or experience.
Yes, walk by faith and not by sight.
Yes, and like that apparently is by Denzel Washington. I was very shocked that that quote was by him, but that is so like I don't know why that hit me so hard. It was like, oh my god, it's so true. But I hope we kiss when we close our eyes. But you know what I mean? Like you know what? But you know what I mean? Like I was like, wow, that's so true. Like, yeah, like when you feel something quite intimately, we do close our eyes. And I think it's like finding that like inner self in the moment of like, I guess vulnerability, right? And I think there's just something so beautiful about that.
Yes, and that just ties in perfectly because it's having faith in yourself without having to see it tangibly as work. So walk by faith, not by sight. That's a good one. Yeah.
Well, guys, it's been such a blessing. It's been so good. No, honestly, it's been so good. Thank you again to Zoe, my guest for today.
Thanks for having me.
And please tune in next week.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Tune in.
Bye.